Finally getting to this topic, let's talk about the somewhat recently extinct animal that I'm sure pretty much everybody actually knows about, the passenger pigeon. The passenger pigeon was a rather large species of pigeon that was endemic to North America. Now, these guys used to be around in droves. There were so many of them. For a very long time before European settlers came to America, the passenger pigeon and the Native Americans coexisted quite well. The Native American people did hunt them, but in sustainable ways that had not a lot of impact on the overall passenger pigeon population. However, when Europeans came to America, they saw all of these pigeons and how they were so abundant and so easy to catch and how they tasted pretty good, and their feathers could be used for a lot of things, including stuffing for like pillows and stuff and mattresses, and they were just everywhere. So they were like, this is amazing, let's kill a lot of them. These birds hung out in such big, dense flocks that it really was super easy to hunt them. You could basically just shoot anywhere and you would hit at least one. They were really so easy to catch. The population really began to take a hit around the 1800s, but there wasn't any real noticeable decline. There were so many of them being hunted, but to the naked eye, the population didn't really seem to be that affected because they would still hang out in these massive flocks. And extinction wasn't apparently very well quantified or super well known about at the time, at least to the average person who was hunting these pigeons. So they were like, this is great, this is like an infinite resource of pigeons. People didn't really notice or care that much to any significant degree when the population of these pigeons did begin to decrease, sorry. The population decline was slowly noticed around the 1850s, but there were still millions of these birds. There were so many, so the idea of them ever becoming actually extinct was out of the question. There's no way, because there's so many of them. But by the 1870s, they were very, very obviously decreasing in population. There were less of them all around. Now, people did start to notice and attempt to protect these birds, being like, hey, maybe we should cool it on the hunting. But by that point, there was not really much that could be done because the population was so low. There were a bunch of them captured and placed in zoos, and there was a small breeding population in captivity for a while, but it didn't really go anywhere. The last confirmed wild individual was kind of accidentally shot in 1900 by a kid with a BB gun who did not know that this was probably the last wild individual of the passenger pigeon. He was just shooting at wild pigeons and managed to hit that one, which can't really blame him. It was like a kid, but oof. Then we have Martha, the famous last captive passenger pigeon who was kept at the Cincinnati Zoo with the last of her species, and they were all males and she outlived all of them. We love a survival queen, but she unfortunately died in 1914 at the Cincinnati Zoo of old age. The estimated age of her was 29, which is pretty good for a bird, honestly. But it is, just like with the Rocky Mountain locust, kind of ridiculous the scale of this extinction. There were millions, possibly even billions of these pigeons that were just living their best life in North America and coexisting with humans for a very long time until the European settlers came, and they had no control, had no really concept of moderation because there were so many of these birds. It was basically unfathomable that any of them would go extinct because there were just so many of them. So there were no rules or regulations about hunting or trapping or anything. It was basically just a free-for-all, and by the time that people noticed, hey, these guys are in serious danger, not really much could be done about it. It really is very sad what happened to the passenger pigeon. It did provide kind of a learning experience, being like, hey, extinction caused by humans is a serious thing that's happening. And the lesson was learned for a while, but apparently not well enough, because there are still thousands of species going extinct on Earth currently today. Now, there actually have been multiple reports since 1900 of passenger pigeons being seen, but since morphologically they're very similar to mourning doves, most of them are likely mourning doves that have been confused with passenger pigeons. Due to the scale of the extinction and what has happened since, it's unlikely that any of these remain in the wild. Pretty much impossible.